Welcome everyone to another episode of Conversations in Christian Living, featuring us. It's just us. What are we talking about today, Peter?
I'm struck by the fact that in COVID we're not supposed to touch each other.
It's fine with me, but
I think that this lack of physical contact raises real questions about what it means to be created, what it means to be impersoned, embodied people. And so I think that this is worth a conversation. We're not going to have the answers. We're not trying to say the public health officials are wrong, but I think that there are some really deep questions here.
So why is it important to be in person and to touch?
Well, we are created beings. We have physical beings. God did not make us just spirits. He did not make us just minds, even though I love to live in my mind. We have physical beings, physical entities. We are embodied. And we have to admit that there are parts of our physical entities which we like. I mean, eating is a good thing.
I enjoy it.
Things that taste good. And so that's a piece. We're created this way. Jesus touched lepers, who were the outcasts, who were not to be touched by public health rules. And so Jesus reaches out, and there's a physical, and he came embodied. He came as a physical entity. So our physical bodies are not something to be escaped. They are part of who we are. And so I think that that's a really important piece of this conversation.
I'm thinking as well, let me entertain a very bizarre scenario, and you can comment. Let's imagine, I'll use myself here, let's imagine that everyone in the world was Chris Clements. So, not a great scenario, but just we'll imagine it. I could not be me in that instance because I would be everyone. There would be no boundaries of my personal being. But when I'm in presence of others, when I talk with others, I discover the boundaries of my personal being, who I am, what my opinions are, what my perspective is, what my inclination and personality is, because it bounces up against another personal being. I think if I or any of us were to live alone on a desert island, we would become less human because there are not other people around us to affirm our individual being and individual humanity. Does that make sense, or do you resonate with that at all?
Yeah, I think, yes, it does make sense. And the very fact that we have physical beings means that there is a limit to our ability to reach. So that it does tell us again that we are limited beings, which is part of who we are created as. So to be limited is not a bad thing. If I was just a mind, there would in fact be no limit, at least no natural limit to what my mind could think, what it could, quote, do. But having a physical entity then limits my ability, which reminds me that I am a created being. And while that can be difficult, it also is a joy. And so that my entity is different, that my physical presence is different than yours and different than other people's, reminds me both of those things that are uniquely who I am physically, along with other parts of my personality, but also forces me to recognize the entity of others, which shapes me. That interaction shapes who I am as I try to figure out the other.
I'm thinking also of the scriptures, and we touched on the scriptures already. We talk a lot in Christian circles about agape, which is important. It tends to be the type of love that we love others with through Christ. But the scriptures also have a category called philia, which is brotherly love. Like in person, you love your brother, you throw the football around, and you hang out. When I was thinking of what do the scriptures call us to do in terms of being present with one another, 1 Peter 3:8 came to mind, and Peter says, "Finally, all of you, have unity of mind, sympathy, a brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. And that type of brotherly love is that in person, you can touch, you can eat, you can have a joke and share it together. Are there other parts of the scripture that speak to you about being in person and caring?
I mean, the whole list, so the parable of the sheep and the goats is a very physical set of caring. The hungry, the thirsty, those with no clothes. That's a very physical set of concerns. Jesus feeds the 5,000 because of physical concerns. I also think that we've got these 12 guys hanging out together, traveling around together. They're a team. That's really what they are. And that camaraderie comes from that sense of philia that you're talking about, that connection. And as I think about teams, which may sound very male, but how is that different than the quilting bee, which is a different kind of team, but it really is a team, where people join together in a task and share a sense of entity together as bodies, as people.
I'm wondering, when we are together, I don't agree with this, but let me ask you, do we just use each other to feel good about ourselves? Is there something Christ-like that occurs when Christians are together?
Yeah, because back to your image of everyone being a clone of you or of me.
Yeah, we don't want that. We just needed to choose someone.
The fact that the other is different forces me to do at least two things. One, value that difference as a good. And two, to figure out how I can allow that good to impact my life. And sometimes that creates friction.
Yeah, it does.
And that friction, though, may in fact shape me. Hopefully it does shape me, form me. The fact that one of the things I miss about not being in this space with people is that I'm not in this space with people who are different than I am, whose presence calls me to act in a particular way. When I'm in the space by myself, who cares what I do? Right?
Yeah.
But when I'm with others, it shapes and forms me that we together are shaped and formed. There's something about praying with one another, singing together, listening to the word together, that is a community activity. And I think that one of the fears I have about COVID is that it's turning all of these things into individual activities, which I think is dangerous. Because there's no space for me to be shaped and formed by the conversation. Or even, let's say when I'm preaching, the shocked look on someone's face, what did he mean by that? That forces me to go back and rethink that. It doesn't happen when I'm talking to a camera. I have no idea what you're thinking out there.
They may have turned it off already. Yeah. I'm also thinking that whatever Christian people do together, like if it's the practice of worship or prayer or play, when we do these things together, we celebrate the fact that God has brought us together, that God has given us a personhood. And I mean, it's just difficult to celebrate one another if you're not in the same space doing life together as well. One last question. How can we be the church if we are separate? And I don't think we can be the church as well, actually. I don't think there's a way of short-circuiting this.
No, I think that we are lesser for not being present. Now, it's very interesting. Today I got a phone call from someone who was trying to get some information. That's fine. The comment that was made is, we love watching your worship service. We and another couple get together and sit in front of the big screen TV. Okay? I want to pause there for a moment and think about that. 4 people are getting together to experience the worship service. That's a community. May not be what happens here usually, but that's an intentional building of community. And I hear other contexts where people say to me, I watch with other people.
Mhm.
Because this is supposed to be community together somehow. And I think there's a really important piece to that, that we are, again, at risk of losing. So how do we help that? I think at the moment, the best we can do is to use technology like the phone,
Mhm.
Zoom, which I confess I hate,
Yeah.
but at least I see other people.
Mhm.
And as things open up at 6 feet of distance, to find contexts where I get to connect, where I get to see someone.
Mhm.
Yeah, because an enormous amount of communication, connection, is in fact body language. 55% of what we communicate with one another is via body language.
Hmm.
And so, even to communicate well, phone and Zoom aren't going to do it. We need presence.
Yeah, we do. God bless you guys, and we are looking forward to being together in person. Even this week, a little taste of that with the VBS. We don't have overwhelming numbers due to COVID, but it's good to be together, to dig into Scripture, to have crafts, to do a bunch of silly dances and songs with our masks on. And we're looking forward to church starting up again. Anything else?
No, I think it's around continue to find ways to connect. Backyard visits, waving to each other on the street, those kinds of presences really matter, really make a difference. And we need to find ways to make that happen.
Yeah. Okay. God bless you all.